Morning, all. All right, so we just have the one game today, and it's a relatively quiet time. This is that time between the trade deadline and the playoffs where there's not a lot that's really going on, and so it's kind of that quiet time, right? Especially in a day like today where we just have the one game. And I'm wearing a Detroit jersey. I'm wearing the actual reverse retro, and I see the hat. The hat punches it up. The jersey's kind of boring, so the hat not boring. It's loud. So Detroit will be playing Tampa Bay in a couple hours' time here. So 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. The Tampa Bay Lightning 34-14-3 now is their record. And for Detroit, 18-26-9. Again, 18 wins is one more than they had all last season. Tampa Bay has won 4 out of 7 in this season series. So this is the last meeting these teams will have. We know they're not meeting in the playoffs. And for Tampa, this is a chance for them to get themselves a little closer in the race to Carolina, as there is still a race for first place and potentially a President's Trophy. Braden Point for Tampa Bay. His points have fallen off. 22 goals, 24 assists, 46 points in 51 games. Victor Hedman, who I still think is going to be the winner of the Norris. And I know the Adam Fox arguments, I know there's arguments for others, but I still think 9 goals, 35 assists. Hedman, I still think is probably going to win it. On the Detroit side, Jacob Vrana, 17 goals, 15 assists, 32 points. He's looked very comfortable in Detroit. He's been pretty solid for them. And Hronek, one of the best kept secrets on the blue line in the National Hockey League. 2 goals, 21 assists for him. See if he gets on the board today. So, yeah, just that one game. Let me know who you think's going to win it in the comment section below. Colorado, Newhook is on the taxi squad. So this is one of those things where we start getting ready for playoffs and you start seeing guys getting called up. And in the AHL, he had 8 games played, 5 goals, 4 assists, 9 points. So that's good news. If Newhook's going to be good to go, and if he's going to get into the lineup, I would say for the playoffs, or even if he ends up being an extra and he comes in and debuts in the playoffs, it's not too shabby. There's been some very good players who've debuted in the playoffs in their career. So, all the best to him. Gadjevich has been recalled by the Vancouver Canucks, off to an amazing season in Utica. Called up, and again, they're going to have to rotate guys in and out. This is going to be an exhausting run for Vancouver. They have a whole bunch of games still to go. And I think that's starting to set in for some people. Like, oh, we're not even halfway through the games they have to play after the pause. Right. So, yeah, it's just going to get worse. You might as well get Gadjevich in there and see what he can do. And, and then also on Canucks news, Nikita Tryamkin has signed a 2-year deal in the KHL. Couldn't agree to money and term with the Canucks. So, at the end of those 2 years, he's an unrestricted free agent. So, there is something to be said about how Tryamkin, who probably should have been coming back over here next season, isn't. If you're on the firebending team, and I'm not sure there's that many people that aren't right now. I got to be completely honest. I'm not sure there's that many people who are able to argue in favor of his job, but not being able to get Tryamkin to come back is an issue. I'd love to know how much he wanted, how much they were offering, and where things fell apart. Because he's a huge defenseman, and there's potential there. Not necessarily top 4, because that excitement died down over the last year and a half. But at the very least, a competent top 6 defenseman, and being 6'7", I mean, yeah, it's too bad. But it looks like he's done as a Canuck at the very least, and at the end of 2 years, he can go wherever he wants. Broberg, speaking of defensemen, he's on his way over, so he's going to be in Edmonton because it's easier to get into Canada on a work visa right now than the U.S. And so, yeah, Broberg's on his way. And we'll see if he plays for the Oilers at all prior to the playoffs or in the playoffs. He's a good young defenseman. You've got to think he'll be a regular on their blue line next year. Suddenly, the Oilers' defense, which as recently as, 6 months ago we would have talked about was kind of suspect here and there. It's actually pretty strong. So with junior hockey not having a championship this year, and a lot of talk about how scouts haven't had a chance to see the players, apparently Erie's going to host a 2-week hockey showcase starting at the end of May. So There'll be players from around junior hockey that are draft eligible. Also, apparently, overagers will be there too that are undrafted. And this is kind of a draft showcase for 2 weeks. And it should be fun. So, looking forward to seeing how that goes. And I'm sure there's scouts who are very happy to see this is going on. But there will be players who are not in this showcase who are going to end up being pretty good players in the draft. I'm just saying. We missed out on like a full season of guys being able to jump or guys being able to drop. So, it'll be an interesting tournament. We'll see what it does to their draft stock, but there's going to be some steals in this draft. And there's definitely going to be some busts as well. And it's more volatile than your normal draft year. So the IIHF took a lot of heat for the women's tournament and the way that it was handled. And Renee Fassel was on Hockey Night in Canada last night, and he did talk a bit about the Olympics and how the NHL needs to have this figured out by the end of May, or they're not going to be able to figure it out because of next year's schedule. The women's tournament, they talked about how when Halifax shut it down, that really made things difficult for them. And so they weren't able to have a backup spot in place on such short notice. So the plan is now to have that women's tournament August 20th to 31st. And that it's looking like it's likely going to be in Alberta. So Calgary or Edmonton, probably, I'll say probably Edmonton. Edmonton's getting pretty used to hosting, bubble scenarios, if that's a need in August. But yeah, so the plan is to have the women's tournament August 20th to 31st. It's not optimal, but they've tried to figure out a way to make this work. I know there were a lot of people that were upset when it just got canceled the way that it did. But I always viewed the announcement as this is canceled, but we're planning on having it later. We haven't given up on having it in 2021. So, we'll see. We'll see if having it in late August, where it would be the only hockey on TV, we'll see if that generates more interest or how that goes. Because, again, it's summer, so it can be a challenge to get people to watch hockey during the summer. So we'll see. But all the best to them. And I have to say that when I'm looking at regular season standings right now, there's not a lot of drama that's left. There's first place in the Central. I guess, Dallas, Nashville is still technically close, but yeah, I don't think Dallas is going to catch Nashville. Canada, it's all set in the North, basically. The West, it's basically set. You've got St. Louis up on Arizona, and they have games in hand, and they're playing much better right now. And in the East, it's all done. I mean, Boston hasn't technically clinched yet, but they're 1 point away from clinching, and that's going to happen. So this upcoming week won't be as much about the drama as it will be about milestones, as it will be about whether or not McDavid gets to 100 points, whether or not Matthews hits 40 goals, which he should, and then maybe aims for 45 before the season's out, and getting into playoff seedings. And, of course, on my side of things, I'll be doing the playoff series previews pretty darn quick once we know who's playing against who. And we don't have a start date yet for the NHL playoffs. I don't think they've 100% decided, or maybe they've decided, but they want to wait until Vancouver and Calgary are officially eliminated before they actually say, okay, so we're starting the playoffs on this date. Because Calgary and Vancouver play each other at the end of the season. Well, it doesn't matter if they're regular season games or playoff games when neither team's making the playoffs. So they may very well be playing those games while the playoffs have already started. I don't know if that necessarily would upset sponsors, where they'd be like, well, nobody's going to watch this. The eyeballs are going to be on all the playoff games. Why should we pay? I don't know. I know there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes money-wise that we don't really take into consideration that the NHL does. And remember, when people say, well, it's just the greed thing. Okay, but since revenues are 50-50, players want to see these games get played and want to see, high sponsorship numbers and ads all over the place because they get 50% of the revenue as well. So it's not just all the owners get all the money. It's a 50-50 split. So, yeah, it's important because when they don't... Like right now, the $81.5 million cap is fake. They're not actually getting that. And there's a deduction and deductions and all that. And I'm sure in the offseason we'll get into it again because players don't like it. But when the NHL's losing money, it means the players owe money to the league. The more money the league's losing, the more money the players owe to the league in order to make up for the shortfall. the more that the NHL is able to do this year, the more you get these games in, the less money that the players end up owing the NHL. So it's not that complicated as, it's just the league's greedy, and I see that all the time, and I kind of ignore it, but it's really not that simple. Because if I'm told, well, yeah, we'll let you stay home, of course you're gonna owe us a whole bunch of money when you do. I'll be like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna come to work then, because I don't feel like owing you money for years. And this is why the salary cap will stay down. Like the new TV deal in the US, that will help. That will absolutely help. But all that does is make sure the players owe less, the league has more, and maybe instead of it being 3 or 4 years before we see the cap go up, maybe it's 2 or 3. So it's not going up anytime in the next 24 months, I wouldn't think. But if it does, I'll still be here to talk about it. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Enjoy the relatively quiet Sunday with just the one game, because tomorrow it's 14 games. So enjoy this. And hey, maybe enjoy the sun or that kind of thing. Let me know your thoughts. And do not forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. Just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It means a lot. I will talk to you soon.